friends, it's Lauren. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about all of the different Disney College Program roles. So let's start with the basics. First thing you should know is that you are given a role based on the Disney company's needs. So you could theoretically be placed in any of these roles in your program. You don't really get a say in which role that you get. Something that is really fun is that you can be placed in any of the Disney resorts, as well as the 4 theme parks, the water parks, and also Disney Springs. So just about everywhere on Disney property, you could be working on your Disney College program. So on Disney's website, they kind of have 6 buckets of different types of roles that you can get, ranging from food and beverage, retail and sales, entertainment, lodging, operations, and recreation. So let's start with the food and beverage department. So the most common role that is assigned on the Disney College program is quick service food and beverage. They say around 30% of college program participants do receive this role. Now it's pretty self-explanatory because you'll be working at one of the fast food type restaurants all across Walt Disney World property. You can be working in both the front of house and the back of house, doing things like cooking and cleaning or dealing with guests, taking orders, things like that. And something that I think is really cool about this role is that you can be working iconic places like the confectionery in Magic Kingdom, or outdoor vending and sell churros and popcorn in the little carts outside at any of the parks or Disney Springs. And the other role that is kind of lumped into the food and beverage umbrella is the seater role. So this is basically your host or hostess role, where you'll be working at more of a sit-down restaurant, things like Cinderella's Royal Table, or at any of the resorts. You can even work character dining. I will note that you cannot get tipped as a college program participant. They are very strict about college program participants not accepting money from people. There's a lot of different things that you can do as the seater role. Like I said, you're the host, but you can also be doing things like preparing tables before guests arrive, like putting out the silverware and the cups and things like that. You can also be greeting guests and helping them change or make reservations. But the seater does not have to deal with the food directly or with busting the tables. The servers will do all of that. Alright, so now in the retail and sales umbrella, the only role in here is merchandise, which is another very common role. About 20% of Disney College program participants do participate in this role. If you're a merchandise cast member, you'll be selling any of the merchandise on Disney World property. You could be selling things like the perfect pair of ears, or you could be selling the bubble wands in the parks. You'll be restocking shelves, dealing with guests' issues, and dealing with money, and also helping guests find the perfect souvenir on their Walt Disney World vacation. I think this role is very special because you can trade for different shifts in different locations if you ever get bored of your main location. So if you're working at Animal Kingdom, let's say, in merchandise, you could pick up a shift at Disney Springs at the pin store and sell pins for a day. Alright, so the next kind of category is the operations category. The operations roles pretty much include anything that has to do with the successful operation of the Walt Disney World parks and resorts. So first up in operations is the attractions role. This role is super cool, very coveted, because when you think of Walt Disney World, I bet you probably think of your favorite rides. In attractions, you could be working the most iconic things like Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, or working at Rise of the Resistance in Hollywood Studios, but you can also be working the shows or parades. So like in Animal Kingdom, you could work at the Big Blue and Beyond show, the Nemo show. Attractions also include some lesser known roles like park greeter, where you'll be standing at the entrance of one of the parks and making sure that the guests are scanning in their tickets and they have reservations and things like that. Attractions also includes parking attendant, where you'll be working in the parking lot, and you might be the very first cast member that the guests see on their vacation, which is really cool. I'm also pretty sure that the Wilderness Explorers over in Animal Kingdom are also included in attractions, as well as things you might not think about, like working in the Seas Pavilion and talking to guests about the animals all day, which would be such a cool role. That's definitely a dream job of mine. Attractions is also a very common role given to college program participants. Around 20% of participants do have this role. Next up in operations is the custodial role. Now, when you think of a custodial cast member, I'm sure you probably are thinking of cleaning up all day long. And it doesn't sound super fun, but I think one of the best things about this role is that you have freedom on what you do all day. So if you are assigned to the front half of Epcot, you could just wander around Epcot, picking up garbage, taking out the trash, making sure that things are nice and sparkly clean for our guests. If you receive Custodial on your college program, you might be a little disappointed, but from what I've seen, the people that do get this role in their college program have really enjoyed it just because of that freedom that they have. They get a lot of great guest interactions, and nobody really wants to yell at the people that are cleaning up after them. Only about 5% of participants do get this role on their college program. So now we have a couple of transportation roles within the operations department, like Skyliner Gondola, Monorail, as well as Watercraft. Now, something to know for the roles like Monorail and Skyliner Gondola, you are not driving those things. So unfortunately, you're not going to be the person at the front of the monorail driving around on those little tracks, or I guess there really isn't a driver on the Skyliner Gondola. So while you don't get to drive, you are going to be directing guests, helping them get where they need to go, answering their questions, things like that. You'll also be giving spiels and being the person on the microphone saying to please remain seated, which I think would be a really fun role. Now, Watercraft is a little bit different because there is a potential that you can be driving some of the boats in Watercraft, which how cool would it be to drive around on the friendship boats all day long? That sounds like a dream. Now, something to note about Watercraft is that it does not include the really big boats like the ferry boats or the Liberty Bell in Magic Kingdom, so you don't get to drive those boats, but you will drive the smaller boats that transport guests around, like on the Seven Seas Lagoon or over in Epcot through that international gateway. You'll also be giving the spiels and directing guests in this role as well. Now, the last role in the operations category is Photopass Photographer, which is pretty self-explanatory. You'll be the people that are in the bright green shorts now, who will be taking pictures of the guests when they meet the characters in front of the castle, in front of Epcot Ball, things like that, which is a very coveted role. It sounds like a lot of fun to take pictures of guests all day and make really magical moments for the guests. In Photopass, you'll get a lot of guest interaction as well as some interaction with the characters potentially, and you'll be carrying around those big fancy cameras. I would consider Photopass a very coveted role on the Disney College program just because it sounds so magical and sounds like a really fun job to have. Alright, the next category is the recreation category. This includes things like children's activities, lifeguard, as well as recreation attractions. Children's activities is probably the next most coveted role in the Disney College program just because you're working with kids all day. A lot of education majors get this role, and it sounds like a lot of fun. So in children's activities, you'll be working mostly at the resorts, doing the activities for kids and families, like the campfires at the resorts, making s'mores, or doing movie nights at the resorts, things like that. So you'll be having one-on-one time with the guests, doing arts and crafts. It sounds like a really fun role. I definitely want this role. It sounds like a lot of fun. You can also be working around the pool area, doing things like dive-in movies or different activities around the pool. So you will be trained in a basic first aid and almost lifeguarding class. Speaking of lifeguarding, that's the next role that we'll talk about now. So the lifeguard role is also pretty self-explanatory. You will be monitoring the guest safety in and around the water attractions at the resorts as well as the water parks. I was actually a lifeguard for 4 years. I was a lifeguard instructor, a manager of a water park, so I definitely have a lot of experience in this lifeguarding role. I know that Disney lifeguards are Ellis lifeguards, which I was as well. Ellis & Associates training program is very rigorous. It is very in-depth. There's a lot of information to know, but once you're actually doing the role, it's really not so bad. It can be stressful at times, of course, but it really is a lot of fun. Plus, you get some really great tans. Now, the lifeguarding role, they typically won't just give to random people on the college program. They seem to send a separate email asking whether or not you will be okay doing that lifeguarding course and then being a lifeguard, just to make sure that you're not going to totally fail in the lifeguarding role, because they really want you to succeed in the role that you're doing. Now, as a lifeguard, you could be working at the water parks as well as at the pools at the resorts. As you can probably imagine, the water parks are a little bit more hectic and crazy than the resorts would be. You do need to be a very strong swimmer and very comfortable in the water and being the first one to respond in an event of an emergency. And the last role in the recreation category is recreation attractions. And this role kind of includes a lot of random jobs, but it sounds like a really interesting role, so let's get into it. So some of the jobs that are included in the recreation attractions category is roles like working with the boats and docking them, cleaning them, helping guests get on and off of them, also working the cabanas around the pools. This role also includes working at the tops of the water slides at some of the resorts as well as the water parks. You could be the person at the top saying, all right, go ahead and go down the slide now, but you're technically not a lifeguard, you're just working at the top of the slides, which I've done that for a while. It's pretty fun. You can also be working around the resorts and the pools, helping out children's activities as well as the lifeguards, doing activities with the guests and other fun things like that. Recreation attractions can also include the mini golf courses, so you could be selling the golf clubs and giving directions on your golf course. The website also says that this could include working at the front desk of a spa, helping book reservations and change appointments and things like that, which I've never actually heard of anyone getting that role, but it sounds like a really fun job. So that was everything in the recreation category. Next up is the entertainment umbrella, which includes character attendant, character performer, as well as costuming operations. So as a character attendant, you'll be working alongside any of the characters at the Walt Disney World parks and resorts. So you'll be the one maybe at the front of the line or the back of the line for meeting a character. You'll probably be closely working alongside a Photopass photographer as they take photos of the guests with the characters. Character attendant is also a very coveted role. A lot of people want to do this role because it sounds like a lot of fun. Who doesn't want to hang out with Minnie Mouse all day, right? It sounds like a really fun job. You're kind of being intermediate between guests and the character. You'll be making sure that the character themselves is doing okay and helping them sign autographs, take pictures. Speaking of the character performers, that's another job that you could receive on your college program in the entertainment category. Now this role is very special because it requires a separate audition. There are a few different options for auditions before your college program, but you do need to have a successful audition and then be given this role specifically on your college program to have this role. I know character performer is definitely a huge dream for a lot of people, so it is very difficult to actually get this role. This is probably the role that has the fewest amount of college program participants doing. I won't get into this role too much because it's a whole other world, but every character performer will be a fur character before they are potentially a face character, so make sure that you'll be okay with that before going into this role. And the third role included in entertainment is costuming operations. So this role you'll be working behind the scenes most of the time, helping fellow cast members get their costumes. So your guests in this case are going to be other cast members. You'll be doing some laundry, cleaning, and getting those costumes all good to go for the next cast member. You could also help the performers get into their costumes. For example, you could work behind the scenes at the Festival of the Lion King, helping all of the zebras and the antelopes and the monkeys get into their costumes before the show. Not many college program participants receive this role. Oftentimes it is given to people with a history of making clothes and sewing and fashion merchandising, as well as working in the costuming department at a theater. The last category of roles is lodging. So these roles will have to do with the resorts and dealing with the operation of the resorts themselves. So first up is bell services, dispatcher, and greeter. This is the role where you'll be mostly dealing with things like luggage and directing the luggage on where it's going to go in the resort. Now you won't actually be moving the bags themselves, but instead be directing the bags where to go on the property, because if you've ever visited a Disney resort before, you know that they are sometimes massive when there's so many rooms and there's a lot of different places that the bags could go, so making sure that they get to the right place at the right time. The name of this role is a little bit misleading because you won't technically be doing the greeting at the resorts. So you won't be doing things like valet or actually greeting the guests as they arrive at the resort, but instead helping out with when they get into the resort, directing them where to go to check in or leave their luggage, where to get to their room, things like that. So you'll really be helping out other people in the resort. The next role is club level lounge. So in most of the resorts, there is a special space for club level guests. And as a club level lounge cast member, you'll be working to get all the little snacks out on the tables. I know they sometimes have grab and go breakfasts, so you'll be helping set that up. That does mean that you might have some pretty early mornings if you are a club level lounge cast member. And this role can include bussing tables, greeting guests, setting the tables up, cleaning, as well as serving alcoholic beverages. The next role is resort concierge. So this role is where you'll be working at the front desk of one of the resorts, helping check guests in, direct them where to go. You could also be doing a lot of the tasks we talked about with the bell services role, as well as working behind the scenes in the telephone room. If somebody calls the front desk to have a couple shampoos brought up to their room, you'll be helping deal with that and get that all situated for the guests. And the last role that we'll be talking about is the Houseperson role. It's pretty self-explanatory. You'll be working to reset all of the guest rooms and make sure they're nice and clean for the next family coming into the room. This role would likely include a lot of heavy lifting, carrying the linens around, cleaning supplies, those little houseperson carts, carrying all of the supplies needed. Now, this role does not have a whole lot of guest interaction, but the good news is that you'll have a pretty consistent schedule and the most desirable hours. And that was all of the roles that you could potentially get on your Disney College program. Let me know which role is your top role, and if you've already completed a Disney College program, let me know how it went and what role you had and what you thought about it. If you're interested in the Disney College program and the application process, I've got a video about some application tips, as well as a video about the phone interview, so go check those out. But that is all I have for you guys today, so like, comment, and subscribe if you like this video, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye!